Colby Covington just mentioned fighting another UFC fighter in his division, near him in the rankings. This is groundbreaking stuff, and we're also going to break down in today's video Garry versus Joaquin Buckley being the new main event of the final card of the year in Tampa, Florida. This is a huge fight as well for the welterweight division, and what these two fights tell us is that there's a few other fights that I feel like are going to be going down in the welterweight division, and it kind of clears up the whole situation. Plus, Nate the Train, baby! Nate the Train is back in the UFC. We've been waiting for this day for a very long time, and he's facing the Korean super middle-aged man, Doo-Hoo Choi. There's a lot to break down in today's video, okay, guys? We're first going to talk about this. Colby Covington. Now, this is crazy, okay? And I don't mean that to be condescending towards Covington. I know it may sound that way. But we're at the point where we've got comments where people are respecting him for at least acknowledging a possibility of fighting someone. This is the level that we've been starved of Colby Covington's fights over the past however many years it's been. It's been a long time since Colby Covington fought. Last fight was against Leon Edwards, and since then, Leon Edwards has fought Bilal, and we've had time since then. Okay? So this is crazy! Crazy stuff. We've been talking about this fight with Jack Della Maddalena. I think it makes a lot of sense. He's undefeated, he's hungry, he's fearless. He's an exciting fighter, so I think that's a fight that the fans will be intrigued with. It's a top contender fight that establishes who's the next contender for the belt. No. I was with you. And I was with you until that. The word that. I'm with you, it's a top contender fight. It is. If JDM wins, there's conversations he should be fighting for the belt. This does not establish who's the next contender for the belt, Colby Covington. You sneaky. He buttered everyone up. This is crazy. We've never heard Colby Covington talk about a fighter like this in the past however many years. And he tried to sneak that one in at the end. This does not establish who's the next contender for the belt if you win. Okay? I need 2 or 3 wins back-to-back from Colby Covington. 2 being a minimum. Okay? I need him to win this one and then one against the winner of Garry, Joaquin Buckley. Then we'll talk. Okay? Don't be just... I mean, I got to win. Title shot again. It's not that... That's not how this works, Colby. And I know that historically, that has been how it works for you. But no. I need a win streak. It's this new invention that just came out. Crazy new hip thing that's came out in the recent era of the UFC, or actually has kind of died out in the recent era of the UFC. It's this crazy thing they used to call a win streak when fighting for a belt. You know what I mean? We've also got this situation with Usman and Shavkat, which we'll get to, but that's at least for an interim belt. And Usman ain't even coming off a win. So we're in a weird time of the UFC right now where, you know, maybe Covington could get away with this, but no. Okay? You can fight the winner of Garry, Joaquin Buckley for your title shot. And that's if you get past JDM, dude. Which I don't think he will. I'm not picking him to win this fight. Not picking him to win this fight at all. I think JDM's going to put work on Colby Covington. And listen, Colby's good. He's got good grappling at the end of the day. But we haven't seen it implemented in I don't know how long. And I don't know if Covington's still the guy that can... Again, even though he did what he did to RDA, and he did take down RDA a bunch of times, watch back that fight. If you know what I'm about to say, okay? If you've watched back the fight with Covington and RDA since it happened, you know what I'm about to say. Dude, that was a close fight. I gave it to Colby Covington. It was a very close fight. I think if JDM gets nearly as many opportunities as RDA, or just half the opportunities RDA had on the feet. JDM combos at their finest will be landing on Colby Covington in this fight. That's what I want to see. This is a good matchup. And listen, is it the ideal situation right now in the welterweight division? No, it's not. I'd much rather see JDM versus Shavkat for the interim belt, while Bilal Muhammad waits for the winner of that. And then we've got a guaranteed new young contender fighting for the belt builds up a fight that doesn't really have too much name value in it anyway, in terms of like the winner of JDM or Shavkat. They're big names, but it's always good to give one of those not yet established huge names an interim belt fight, you know what I mean? Because it gives them a little bit of popularity before they go into the big one against a great Bilal Muhammad. Good Lord, what a twist in the welterweight division's championship history here. I wanted to see JDM Shavkat. I wanted to see Usman versus Brady. I wanted to see Leon Edwards versus Joaquin Buckley. You know what I mean? And then Covington can fight Ian Garry. That would have been a good situation. I could have also seen an Edwards versus Ian Garry, Usman versus Joaquin Buckley, and a Colby Covington versus a Sean Brady. There could have been many ways this fight, this division could have turned out. I'm just glad we've got Colby Covington asking for an opponent. This is groundbreaking. He's put out there that he's interested in fighting someone. And that someone is Jack Della Maddalena. This is a guy in Colby Covington who, for the longest time, if you didn't have an undisputed belt, he didn't know your name. In quotation marks, I should have included them. He didn't know your name, conveniently. So how possibly could he call them out if he doesn't actually know what they're called and what their name is? I like this fight just because Covington wants it. So let's just see the fight. Hopefully this takes place in Australia in February 2025. Of course, we're not going back in time. But that's what I want to see here. This is the matchup. Book it now, before it's too late. I don't want Covington having a drink over Christmas and then realizing he doesn't want to do this anymore. Now, we lock this in, okay? I don't care if it's a 13-week training camp. I don't care how far away the February card is. We lock this in now. JDM, Colby Covington. That's a huge fight. Covington's return is huge for the return to Australia, because right now in Australia, we ain't got much. You know what I mean? I just showed you a bunch of fight announcements, but we haven't got much for Australia in February. I don't see Adesanya fighting in Australia next. I think they're going to want to have Adesanya to help with the US market right now. The States don't have a champion. Jones is there, but everyone knows Tom's the real deal. You know what I mean? The States don't have that name. There's a champion in the US that can fight there a few times a year. So I think they're going to use Adesanya in the US, especially because it might be one of his last fights, potentially, especially if he loses to an Amavov or a Baralho. We might not see Adesanya fight again, because he might be like, I only fight the best. Now I'm out the top of the division. I ain't going to make a comeback against Jack Hermansson. You know what I mean? So I reckon they're going to use Adesanya in the US, which leaves maybe a Volkanovski-Lopez interim belt, which I don't like, but Volk mentioned it. Lopez has mentioned it. That normally means that the UFC has mentioned it to both of them. So we could see a Volkanovski-Lopez interim belt in February with a Covington JDM in the co-main event, and then some other good fights down the card. Steve Erceg, Manel Cap, if Cap gets through his next opponent. There's a few options with Australian names involved. I know Fiziev trains at Tiger Muay Thai. That's a convenient flight for him to get to Australia. Gamrot's not really a big name with any negotiating power, seeing as he was a backup for a belt, and then they just gave him Dan Hooker anyway later. Kind of crazy, to be honest, if you're Mateusz Gamrot. Either way, he doesn't have negotiating power. Send him to Australia. Fiziev, Gamrot too. That's how I would book out that card. And maybe another fight on there, who knows. Zhang Weili, she's Chinese, similar time zone to Australia, especially in Perth, so that makes sense as well. You know what I mean? We've also, but in the fight, I've got JDM. I need to mention that. I do have JDM. I just don't know if I'm going to be able to trust that Covington will be anywhere near the level that he needs to be at in order to consider him beating JDM. I don't see it. So I'm going to have to go with Jack Della Maddalena. We ain't seen Covington good in about 2 years. I know he's good, and you don't underrate him now because he hasn't fought in a while. He's still the guy that made it close with Usman. I get it. But I just think it's going to be too dangerous on the feet, and he's going to get slept in the first or second round. That's my honest take. Okay, guys? Sorry. I'm a big Covington fan. Was a big Covington fan. If he brings back some energy and a good performance, I will be. But I got to go JDM, dude. This guy's the future of the welterweight division. We move on. Ian Garry versus Joaquin Buckley. This is a sick fight. sick fight in the welterweight division got announced a few days back. This was just after I actually made a video reacting to Bilal Muhammad being injured, and then them doing, I was saying they were going to do Shavkat versus Ian Garry or Shavkat JDM for the belt. And then this got announced, and then that sort of made my video redundant in a way, where it was just like, okay, well, I just gave all of these matchups on the assumption that either Ian Garry or JDM would get the title shot, and now I hear that neither of them are. So we've got Ian Garry, Joaquin Buckley. Interesting. 7 versus 9. When you really think about Ian Garry, you do think about him being a little higher ranked than he is, right? I don't know if that's that way for anyone else, but then I actually think about it and I go, well, he beat Jeff Neal in an MVP and Neil Magny. Like, Ian Garry hasn't yet had that name like a Gilbert Burns or like a win over a Covington. Well, it's kind of fucking difficult to get a win over Covington these days. Not because of how absolutely epic and awesome he is, but he doesn't fucking fight contenders until now against JDM, I guess. But yeah, but Ian Garry hasn't really had that massive win, so this does make sense for him. Get a win, main event. This is a good main event as well, both names. I know Joaquin Buckley's going to try and sell this as well. So it's a good sort of verbal sparring partner to go back and forth with. Maybe they'll have a moment where they go back and forth and trash talk each other. Who knows? I'm officially offering Joaquin Buckley a chance to come on the channel in the build-up, because the way I see this matchup is, listen, some of you may see this as Joaquin Buckley versus Ian Garry. I see this as the Buck versus the Cuck. And I think that's how everyone sees this matchup. So Joaquin Buckley, if you want to talk about Ian Garry and your big performance in a main event of a fight night, of course. But if you want to talk shit about Ian Garry, come to the king, okay? I'm sure we could stir something up. So that's good. That'll be a huge one. And I'm glad this is a main event. The winner of this, again, should be looking at maybe the winner of if Covington beats JDM, or, you know, if they do an Usman or an Edwards fight, like they do Edwards versus Brady, and the winner of that needs one more. Or if Usman doesn't fight for the belt next and does actually fight another contender in the division and they need one more after that. Like, this is the sort of who else needs one more type of winner type fight, in my opinion. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to this. And I actually think Joaquin Buckley wins. I think Buckley wins this fight. I was impressed by his performance against Wonderboy. And I thought Wonderboy was doing good in that fight early on. You know, he was stuffing some takedowns well where he needed to. And it's always tough seeing Wonderboy have to stuff some takedowns. It feels a little unfair, I'll be honest. But you could see Buckley getting closer and closer to landing on Wonderboy as the fight went on. So I'm wondering if, you know, this is a main event. 5 rounds. We saw Buckley grow into the fight against Wonderboy. We saw him grow into the fight against Alex Morono as well, am I mistaken? I know it's Alex Morono, but early we see Buckley a little, you know, he's finding his timing, and then round 2 he starts getting a bit better, and if you're a low enough level, he'll take you out there. But if in round 3 against Morono and now against Wonderboy, so you can see that it translates no matter the level of opponent here, he was beating the hell out of Morono in round 3, and then he slept Wonderboy in round 3 in his fight after that as well, so yeah. And he beat Nasultan Ruzaboev, who we haven't seen since. So it's hard to tell how legit of a win that is. Maybe he got fraud checked, who knows. But that was like a perceived dangerous contender that was going to be huge at welterweight and another problem for them to deal with. And Joaquin Buckley's put some good wins together. So I think he can beat Ian Garry. Also with Ian Garry, he looked terrified of MVP on the feet. MVP's a very good striker, though. So I get that. But, like, land a shot. You know? Ian Garry barely landed much of anything in that fight. He won the first round because he nearly choked MVP out. I don't see him getting down Joaquin Buckley and, like, exposing his jiu-jitsu or getting his back. Buckley's like a ball of muscle in the division. So he's really good at tucking up and getting back up to his base. You know what I mean? So I don't see Ian Garry controlling him on the ground. I don't see him taking down Joaquin Buckley. I don't see him chewing up Joaquin Buckley's legs like he did against Neil Magny. I could see this being a tricky one for him, and I can see him getting caught. So I would say late rounds TKO for Joaquin Buckley, 3, 4, and 5, is what I think is most likely to happen here. But Ian Garry could win. I'm not just picking against him because he's Ian Garry. I'm just I'm being honest. I do think Buckley's got a solid chance of getting this one done. But if Ian Garry wins, this is another legit win, and then we can talk about title elimination bouts. Huge fight. Nate Landwehr, let's talk about Nate Landwehr maybe a little bit at the end. Because those two matchups, Covington and RDA, or Covington and JDM, sorry, different 3 initials in a row. Covington versus JDM. Ian Garry versus Joaquin Buckley. It clears up that we're probably going to have Sean Brady versus Leon Edwards and Usman versus Shavkat. If they are going to make Shavkat fight again before he gets his fight with Bilal Muhammad, because I feel like they would have announced this by now. That is a UFC staple. Like, if they announced that a fight is cancelled, they actually often announce the replacement at the same time that they announced it's cancelled. You know? They sort of know that it's someone's injured, but before they announce it officially, they have someone pull out, and this is the replacement. So who knows if there's going to be a replacement? Because I was saying this a lot. Usman was posting some training videos of, I'm getting back in the gym. So maybe it is, and maybe they're trying to work out the price. Or maybe they're still trying to negotiate about Ankalaev versus Pereira being the thing to take the place. And that would give them an excuse to delay this until maybe January, which could need a little bit of help on that card instead. Because if Pereira Ankalaev gets added to the December pay-per-view, it's already a pretty good pay-per-view. They don't need this as well. But a January or a February card could need this as well. I reckon January, it's in America. That'd be a huge fight. I think it's in LA. So yeah. Usman, Shavkat, likely going to happen. If it doesn't, I guess they're just going to do Shavkat Bilal and then have Usman fight Jeff Neal. It kind of leaves Usman in a weird position, right? Because he goes from potentially getting one of these big fights to now they're probably all going to get booked up if he doesn't take one soon. He could take on a Sean Brady. I don't see him getting taken down by Brady, and I think he'd have a decent chance on the feet. So that might not be a bad matchup for him. But I'm sure he would much rather jump straight back in at the deep end against a Shavkat Rakhmonov for an interim belt to guarantee a title shot will be next. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But that's what I think's next to happen. And this is a decent matchup as well. They could put Usman versus Shavkat on a January pay-per-view. And then Sean Brady versus Leon Edwards. This screams Fight Night Apex main event. That's really good. You know? I noticed the Edwards' fan base has completely fucking disappeared since he lost the belt. Completely disappeared. Shows how genuine of a fan base they were. I mean, I kind of feel bad for Leon, but I know he doesn't really care about fan base. He probably cares more about the fact that he lost the belt and he's focusing on trying to get it back. But it just shows that people won't, like, I don't see a Leon Edwards fan in any comment section. I don't see anything about Leon Edwards anywhere. So this is kind of the matchup that makes sense. Apex Fight Night main event. It's kind of shoddy to put it in the Apex. If they wanted to do a Fight Night in the UK, it's probably going to be difficult to do enough pay-per-views there, seeing as Tom Aspinall's champ and Jones is holding up the whole division. So I don't see Tom Aspinall fighting for a belt in the UK early next year. He'll probably have to wait until, you know, we find out what happens in Volkov versus Garn 2 or Pereira Ankalaev before he gets his next opponent. So that could be April towards June. So if they wanted to do a Fight Night in the UK, this could be a main event with Paddy Pimblett in a good named fight in the co-main event. Or if Paddy Pimblett gets as big a name as he deserves right now, like if Pimblett gets a Moicano or Pimblett gets a top contender, then he would be the main event and this would be underneath it. So we'll see what happens. We've also got Nate the Train. He's back in December against Doo Ho Choi. Huge news. I'm looking forward to seeing it. I got Nate the Train winning this fight. I'm picking him to win. I could see the pace being too much for Doo Ho Choi. I could also see him getting caught because he seems to get caught in every fight. But I don't think Choi puts him out cold. I don't. I've got Nate Landwehr winning this fight. And then we can get Nate Landwehr back into the big name matchups. Can you imagine a future Nate Landwehr, Gene Silva? Come on. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. See you later. And I just had to make a video because I don't think people that are new to the UFC understand how fucking groundbreaking this Colby Covington news is. Look at the comment above my head. Up there. Dislike Colby, but respect for at least acknowledging the possibility of fighting JDM. That sums this all up. This has 1,200 likes. Other opponents get respect for their performance fighting someone. You know, say what you want about Khalil Roundtree and his cult, but respect for that performance that he put on against Alex Pereira. Then other fighters that are more liked overall will get respect for fighting him. You know, say what you want about Whittaker getting destroyed by Chimaev. You got to at least respect that he fights a guy like Chimaev. Covington is getting respect. Not for a good fight against someone. Not for fighting someone. He's getting respect for at least acknowledging the possibility of fighting someone. This is... this is crazy stuff, guys. Okay? Who is this guy and what have they done with Colby Covington? But yeah, make it happen before it's too late and he changes his mind. Lock him into this. Okay? Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Toodle Pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye.